back away and ask if as in the style of arranging flowers, back away and ask if this is needed. Hiding in decorations like a coward, I suddenly end up far more cheated. We've solidarity for that crest-fallen tree of the woods. If no one is around to confirm that it's ours, well, who would? How to should? We've spent 4 long weeks in this morning, and we've serviced double medevac. On the side table is a stark warning, comatose and a life fading to black. There's so much coming in at you all at once, all at once. You know, when here we look up, we hook up, join the club. Now we're through, now you know. All in all, a hero tends to falter. We learn them, and find that we could all do better. Low at odds from the heights of artificial gods, ignoring, scorning, that's half the cost for one's indebted to shy the thorns that not get cut. This casino wilderness period is strange. God fuck.
Everything is swimming around in my head, and we're bound to be found in a bad double down.
We play hit after hit for these slot machine shits. Oh, Lord Jesus. All in all, a hero tends to falter. back away to see your pals receding, back away to find you are defeated.
Hello everyone, and thanks for coming. My name is Gabriel Riccio. You may know me from my project The Gabriel Construct, or from the King Crimson sheet music books I create with Trey Gunn. I want to thank Anthony Garone for allowing me to come on board Make Weird Music as an interviewer. Anthony is one of the proofreaders on my King Crimson books, and I helped him proofread his King Crimson book, Failure to Fracture. I'm going to be interviewing artists I've collaborated with, and this is the first of that series. So, feel free to put questions in the chat, and we can get to them later if there's time. But just remember that everything you say in there will be immortalized, as far as I know. Anyway. So today, I have Sacha Mullin here with me, a Chicago singer, pianist, and songwriter who has appeared with bands like Lovely Little Girls, Cheer Accident, and Dead Rider. But we are here today mainly to talk about his solo music. We just heard his song Arranging Flowers, the opening track from his third solo record, Casino Wilderness Period. So welcome, Sacha. Happy St. Lucia Day. It's quite fortuitous that we're doing this interview on a holiday that you introduced me to. We've made saffron buns many times together for this holiday, and you even recorded a song about it at my apartment. So thanks for being here.
And also with you. Thank you, Gabriel. Yeah.
Sacha and I have a lot of history together. He's one of my closest musical collaborators. I believe we met in 2014. At the time, I was putting together a live lineup for the Gabriel Construct to play material from my 2013 debut, Interior City. Shane Prendeville from Guzzlemug and Murmur had joined on guitar, though he didn't end up sticking around long enough to play a gig with us. But he was a good friend of yours from the Twin Cities, and he had co-produced and engineered your debut album, Whelm, which featured his band Guzzlemug as your backing band. And he felt I needed to meet you, and told me to go see a band you were playing in called Lovely Little Girls. And I believe it was the first gig after they'd lost the drummer Charlie Werber, who also played on that record.
He's living. I just want to make that. I just want to make that clear. He is alive.
Right.
He's a good person.
So.
Yes, he just departed at membership
Yes.
for a while. I believe Guzzlemug is undead. They are all alive. The band itself is undead. You don't.
Thank you for that clarification.
Welcome. I'm glad. Thank you. This has been the interview.
So yeah, I went to the Empty Bottle at March 2015, and I wasn't even sure which member of the band he wanted me to meet, but I was really impressed with the show, and I think we didn't end up actually meeting until we ran into each other later at a Magma gig, and then I remember coming over to your apartment and finally having a real conversation and getting things going. And soon after that, we ended up joining each other's live bands as each other's backing keyboardist and vocalist, starting with some of your gigs, which was just the beginning of an ongoing collaboration for us. And at the time, you were working on your sophomore solo album, Duplex.
Wait, let me make that face again.
Yes, indeed. It's a good face.
My mother says she can hear it through the phone, so.
So this one is kind of an unusual record because it's two EPs put together. One side's more electronic and the other side's more acoustic. And at the time, you'd basically finished the first of those, the electronic side. And you started tracking pre-production demos with me for the second of those EPs in November 2015. And I think we did another session in January 16. And Todd Ridman of Dead Rider co-produced the final album versions. And the album finally came out in July 2017. So played a number of gigs together supporting it. And you came over and recorded a couple Christmas EPs as well at my apartment, including...
Really rare moments of being festive.
Yep. And then in 2018, we began working on the record that we're here to talk about, your third solo release, Casino Wilderness Period, which at this point was, I believe, your seventh tracking session at my home studio.
Sure.
So, yeah, I don't know why I have a record of that, but I do.
How many projects have been shelved against my will?
Let's not even go there, you know. So yeah, can you talk a little bit about where you were at the time and the impetus for starting this record?
Casino Wilderness Period?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it takes a lot of context that you had kind of brushed over, but essentially I never really thought of myself as needing to have the spotlight. I think there has often been perhaps a perception that because I have the capability of, being shiny and taking the lead when needed, that this has always been my calling. But it really took me a long time to mentally go, oh, I really need to have the spotlight be on me, because I really generally think of myself as a collaborative musician. I think, and it depends on like what people think about me and where they know me from. Sometimes I get emails from like European basements because people know me from progressive rock and avant rock stuff. But I know for a long time I was in jazz stuff, and even when I was younger I was in noise rock, and it really all depended. So for me, my brain just kept going, what opportunity am I singing for? What's needed of me? How can I be the best vocal instrument and like physical representation? Because when you're a singer, sort of like those two things have to coincide with each other. So you feel like you're partitioning an authentic, I don't really like that word very much, but like it's a part of you that's real, but the other part of you is this technically inclined aspect, hopefully, and then you merge those together to fulfill the role that you're doing. So I love that this is the short answer. So yeah, I guess the first two albums were things that we'll probably go into them more, but those were records that had a certain happenstance to them, and this one was finally me going, you know what, I really just want to do my own thing for once. It apparently took me my entire music career to finally go, I guess I would like to do something other than session singing. I would like to show up and have something completely represent what I hear in my head as a songwriter. There you go.
Right. Yeah, that's about how I remember it too. So,
oh, good. I'm not lying. That's great.
Yeah. So we made demos of everything except two songs on the record, I believe, and also several songs that didn't make the record. And it's been a long time.
Oh my God, there were so many songs that didn't make the record. I mean, but a lot of them were fragments. A lot of them were just things that I didn't feel like I needed to complete, or I mean, there's that calling sometimes when you're recording things or sketching things out, and that's the whole point of demoing, right? And I have felt our collaborative energy together, you and I, has so much trust in it that's why I have gone to you to demo things, and not just because I enjoy being in a sweltering attic, because not that at all. It's a really bare experience to have trust of primordial ooze of songs and trying to like make them fit and see what you reflect on them as. So I'm very honored by all of the songs that will never be finished. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I thought those, aside from the heat, those sessions felt pretty good, and we spent a lot of time programming drum parts. You showed me song examples, singing me parts you wanted to include in the songs, recording your piano and pads, played a bunch of guitar and bass, and the demos that we recorded together largely tended towards being moody and atmospheric.
Yeah.
A lot of reverb, electronic sounds. But ultimately, for the final record, you brought Todd Rittman back to produce this one, and I think he had a bit of a bigger role in this than he did in the previous record, right? Like you
Absolutely.
had him involved at an earlier stage of the process, and really let him shape the arrangements with his drums, bass, guitar, vocals, and you felt the songs needed more grounding than was present in the demos. So Todd kind of made the arrangements more earthy, organic, gave it a dry live drum sound. I didn't even know that he could play drums like that. I mean, some of the grooves on this record are wild. So can you
Yeah.
talk a bit about your process with Todd and how the songs changed with him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of the material that I have gravitated towards, or even the stuff that I've just generally been called for, has kind of been more in the ethereal end of it. And I think it's kind of an overused adjective for a lot of things, but it's convenient. And I get it. Like, I think that my vocal presence has a tendency of hitting, I can hit a lot of high notes, but there's like an approach to which I do so with a lot of air and a lot of focus in that air so it doesn't disappear, right? And it takes a lot of grounding to do that. But I think it's kind of weirdly become my calling card, even though it's one color spectrum in my whole voice. And I felt maybe because, like I was kind of referring to earlier, my first two records were created for reasons, but in my brain, they're canon. They're canon in the lore of me. But um, there's still like, I wouldn't say there's a lack of confidence, but there definitely is like some things don't quite coalesce how I wanted them to be. And I think it's like, and I wonder if it was just again, a mental frequency of I am not a solo musician at that time. It's one thing to have skill set, but you have to have the determination to do that. And I think because there was something in me to create Casino Wilderness Period as a solo statement, and in some ways this is sort of like a soft reboot, or like season 3 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. You know, like the lighting scheme got a lot better and sharper. I think that bringing Todd in was really logical to me because I had worked with him for so long on many sessions, because Todd is sort of, not to blow smoke at him if he sees this, but like, he's a bit of a legendary musician in Chicago. He's mostly known for his tenure in US Maple, and he's on the Drag City label with Dead Rider, which is just kind of like a loose translation of his name from German. And there's this energy, especially about Dead Rider, that hit me in such a way the first time I was exposed to it, that I went, oh God, I really need this in my life. I need this particular solid bite of a Dagwood sandwich. And I mean, the whole point about being collaborative and then is also kind of in part thinking of yourself as a musical director, and I take a lot of credit for the musical arrangements, but people that work with me often also like offer suggestions. Like I will be very clear about what I'm looking for, but then there will be times of like, hey, do you hear this? Or like, what if I take your idea and I invert it? And Todd had this particular trust fall with me on a lot of those things. And so during Duplex, the previous record, I guess we sort of, I mean, the term producer is such a strange term in general. Like, what does it actually mean? But he took more of a technical role because I was doing a lot of loose sessions during Duplex, and we kind of grouped them together. So I guess technically that we would consider that more of a co-production. And the song Questions that I did on that record too was also a co-production with another producer named James Sanger. But otherwise it was like all Todd. And I had such a good time doing that also during the Duplex sessions, Todd asked me very kindly to do some kind of like small written parts for his Dead Rider record that was coming out around the same time called Crew Licks. And there's a song on there called Bad Humors that I was just like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed to be. And it just hit this spark in my head. And I was thinking like, this is of no dismissal of any collaboration that I've done with anyone. But I felt that if I was going to bring myself to make a solo statement, it had to be with him, and I had to convince him to leave his house to do it. He's not like a Mrs. Havisham, like reckless. It's just he's very busy. And I was pretty persistent for a while, and I love the demos that you and I did. But the songs were telling me that they needed to land, that it was my time to stop being floaty and to finally just take a moment and be like, hey, you are confident, so you need the songs to also appear confident. And so Todd, in my brain, I kind of think about it as like when you have deep sea divers and they very carefully take a jellyfish all the way up, and they're like, okay, little jellyfish friend, come on. And my floaty song is coming up, and if they're not careful, the jellyfish is going to go squish, and that's really sad. but Todd really challenged me in a lot of great ways. We had a lot of difficult conversations, a lot of productive conversations, and that was part of the beauty of the end result of the record, is that I'm grateful to have a record that sounds like I wanted it to sound my whole life. And it's really great to say that, because a lot of times people will give you a compliment in passing about something and you're just like, yes, but I want to change all of this behind it, but I have to kind of like close my eyes and breathe for a second so you don't think I'm being flippant or dismissive of your compliment. Like if someone compliments me on this record, I'm like, I agree with you. So, and that's called arrogance.
Well, I mean, I really do feel like it's your most fully realized solo release, you know. I completely agree with that. So after a number of delays, the album finally came out this past September.
What do you mean? What am I legally allowed to say about those delays? I don't know. Is it once again something that I'm alluding to through my gritted teeth, that there are things beyond my control in my music career, that despite doing all the correct things, that it appears that I disappear for years at a time? Is that what you mean?
That's how the music industry goes these days. But yeah, why don't you tell us about the title of the record instead?
That sounds good. Years ago, this was like within maybe a year of the great Etta James passing away. There was a concert that my folks got some tickets to go to a casino to go see Etta James, and she had just gotten back from like some very invasive surgery, and so she was surrounded by her family and she was seated, but she gave this amazing performance, and I was just thinking like, wow, it's really strange that this legendary musician, this intensely powerful and grounded but intimate musician, is almost reduced into only being able to kind of do the casino circuit. And then it kind of made me sad, because like it doesn't do anything to dismiss the greatness of someone like Etta James. And like, I'm not the hugest person, I'm not like super into a lot of blues music. Like I respect it, but there's something about the way that she approached that music that again, it felt really human. And I think that's kind of a through line of things for me, is that if someone everything has validity if someone's sincere about it. And I can totally be convinced about it. But the humanity has to be in tandem with the musical skill set, and she had that in spades. And I remember leaving the show really moved and confused about it, and then being stuck in this outer hallway of like this like these promotional headshots from the 80s and 90s of like Paula Poundstone and like 4 people pretending to be the Temptations, and Buffy St. Marie, who's apparently a very hot topic right now, which we will not broach. I just kept thinking like, oh my God, all these people are in a casino wilderness period. And I said that out loud without really thinking about it. And my friend Alexandra was like, well, that sounds like a title to something. So I held it in my head, which is sort of connected to people giving me unsolicited advice over the years about thinking like what my career direction should be, when I just want to make music that satisfies me first before doing it just because I could do something. Does it do anything else? And then finally someone was like, you should play a casino. It's like, I am going to try to take this as a compliment again. So when I made this, it's sort of an ironic statement, and it ended up as a lyric in the lead track as well. Because the idea in my head is that there's something quite disturbing about being stuck in like a Vegas residency or like a casino in the middle of nowhere, and to have your wilderness period be the twilight years of your life or the height of your success, just reduced as a performer, is quite strange to me, because I find it's not that I don't want to be entertaining. It's just that my ethos is kind of trapped as a singer-songwriter derailed by a very wide interest of sounds. So I'm not ready for the casino yet, is what I'm saying. It's an ironic title. End of statement. Continue.
All right. Well, let's talk about that lead song, which is the song we listened to right at the beginning of this interview, Arranging Flowers.
Yes.
And, while it has definitely a more organic feel than the demo we did of it, there's still a ton of space in the verses and pre-chorus, and then a lot more dynamics leading into this big chorus that has really active drums. It was really interesting to hear Todd reinterpret the guitar parts I played on the demo, rhythmically displacing them, adding lots of flair. There's a lot about this song that I really love. The ending where it suddenly becomes rather ominous. Even just a little detail of the beginning, opening the record with the slot machine sound, um,
Mm,
obviously connecting directly to the title. So can you talk a bit about what this song is about and how the music reflects that?
no. It's, I mean, well, the casino, the slot machine sound is was all Todd, and because originally when I wrote the song, it was I'd envisioned it as like a running start, and the radio edit, which is also the video, there's a music video, that's that essentially does that. So like, we made like a 45 of that, of like a shortened version of the song, because the full song is about 6 minutes long, and it but I mean, I think that they do different things. I mean, the casino sound is important to me on the album version because it kind of brings you into this landscape. It's I think about setting music cinematically, and the song I think is probably the most intense song on the record, which is saying something because there's a lot of intensities going on. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot more dynamics than because the demo recording, which will not see the light of day, the demo recording is I guess I had envisioned a lot more of like a drum and bass electronica thing, which Todd interpreted later on with live drums. Like he played those at tempo. I mean, which is insane. Would you like me to actually answer your question? The song is connected to somewhat of the title about being kind of cornered into this perception that I should just be an entertainer. But I've definitely been told to shut up and sing quite a lot in my career, which is quite upsetting to me because if I get hired and asked for a consulting position and not strictly as a singer for hire, those are different things. I know when not to speak. Um, and I'm still told not to say anything, or like you're in a collaborative situation and then someone like has like a power trip. It's a bummer. So I was finding myself feeling really drained, just thinking like music isn't fun. Music is not fun for me anymore at that time. Um, and so, I guess the opening couple of verses are me kind of just trying to be like, well, I think I slept another 3 hours. How long can I stay on the couch before I have to move? And then I think the thing that's been really difficult for me has been the transparency of, I mean, I guess the evils of the world. Like it's like there's no real posturing anymore. Like people aren't even trying to hide how awful the social structures are in the universe that we're forced to kind of live in as a social construct that we're born into. Fun subject. Um, and I think there's this combination in Arranging Flowers that thematically connects the idea of an like I sing a lyric about artificial gods, and celebrity absolutely is that. Politics are absolutely that. But I mean, even in smaller universes, like within family, within friend circles, sometimes we defer power away from ourselves because it's just easier to do. And so, I had written. I haven't talked about this, but I like sometimes when I'm writing a song, I'll just kind of like vocalize, and there'll be a lot of vocables, and the knock it cut came out, and I was like, knock it cut. What does that mean? And then I went, oh, it kind of sounds like not get cut. And then I was reading the intro to this Anthony Bourdain cookbook, as one does, and he was talking about plating a hamburger, like comparing it to ikebana, which is like Japanese floral arrangement, and think about like simplicity is the key, which I know is ironic considering my answer is really long-winded here. Um, but I think that I realized I was feeling overwhelmed by all of these decorations that were being thrown at me, like all of these accolades I didn't necessarily deserve, and then other things that I felt I did deserve and I didn't feel validated for, and just directions people wanted me in, and then my despair of the world. And so there's a lot of existentialism in there. There's a lot of like kill your idols in there. Um, it's hard for me to write a song about just one thing because I feel like there are impressions and moods of things. So there is a through line and you can find yourself in there. But the ominous thing at the end is just because it's like at the time and still even now, like it's easy to feel really defeated about a lot of things. And um, I think there is still a lot of optimism, even though it ends on a minor chord. I think that um, there's something really beautiful about the beauty in the breakdown. I think that was like a Frou Frou lyric, Imogen Heap and Guy Sigsworth. But it's absolutely true. Like I think you can't have one or the other. There's a lot of nuance in life. End of statement. That's gonna be doing a lot of that, I guess. Hi.
Yeah,
Hi,
yeah, and
everyone.
that sense of defeat, if correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's kind of been important in terms of, or rather, it was important in terms of you finding that desire to actually be a solo artist, right? And one of
Yeah.
the things that we were working on around this time was you had a vocal trio called Vitamin Drama, and we were
Yes.
working on some cover songs, which were never completed. And so do you feel like that ended up kind of contributing to the sense of wanting to um, be more of a solo artist?
No, but yes. Again, you were saying, I'm again thinking about a lot of the NDAs that are thrown at me, which are so stupid because I just, all I want is to be completely transparent about everything, and interpersonally I am, but like from a public statement thing, I don't particularly want to go to court. Vitamin Drama, the group themselves, they're such deep friends of mine, and we love each other very much, and it's just unfortunate that there were various circumstances that prevented us from finishing the project. And but it is yet another eccentrically named band in my resume. So I think there was a certain defeat about that because there were social circumstances that I think didn't because it fell apart during the riots for George Floyd, and I remember that. Right? Am I displacing that? There's a lot of things in this life. But I think it was around then because we got pretty far into the production. Like we even tracked drums with, um, and we got most of the vocals done, but we were missing some really key parts. So like the songs just they're not releasable. But then there was also this like offer of a major label deal that cannot be named, and it was yet another circumstance in which you get really far into a project and then they want to change everything about it, and yet they're not funding it, and you have to fund it yourself and keep up the illusion that being with a group or with a name is more impressive than it actually is. Like from the outside world, there are a lot of things that we have to put on. Those are the decorations as well. Like we have to pretend like, oh, I am with this group, this company, and they're distributing this and da 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 da. But on the inside, you're just like, the amount of clerical work I have to do on my own that these people are supposed to take care of and they don't, and it's insane. And then they expect you to drop everything you've done, which is very expensive, and a lot of things that are recorded pro bono on goodwill, like that risks relationships, and these are all done by people in power that you never see. So definitely that influenced a lot of my disillusionment when I was writing Flowers. And that's why it's the lead single.
Would you say there's an overall theme to this record, or is it more of a collection of songs that
I guess both. That's a really dissatisfactory answer, I know, but I think that if there had to be like a reductive theme, it would just be like the through line of hurt and consequence, and trying to sieve your way through the hurt. And there's lots of different kinds of hurt. I mean, we've been talking about the song "Arranging Flowers," which is the song that you started this with, and it opens the record. So there is sort of a theme song quality to it. But several songs are about one romantic relationship I had, and then another one is about a different kind of relationship I had, and then a different song is about a relationship with myself, and then another is about death and passing. And so there's a lot of transition in this record. Which I find really interesting for a record that feels like it's the most fully formed thing for me. I guess transition is and reflection and hurt, lots of hurt.
All right, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you also resurrected a really old song for this record, right? In Fiberglass.
Yeah.
which is kind of an unusual song for you. I mean, it's this 2 minute long song with changing time signatures. It's kind of more layered and synth heavy than the rest of the record. Um, and it kind of evokes a very snowy feeling for me personally.
Hmm.
But I think it's a good example of how you straddle the line between pop and the avant-garde. And I think that kind of directly relates to what you've been talking about with regards to sort of trying to find a place for yourself as a solo artist, because straddling that line has put you in a middle ground where it's difficult to fit in a box, and there's a lot of pressure from both sides to fit into their respective boxes. So how have you dealt with straddling that line?
A lot of crying. Therapy. Um, I it's not easy. I mean, you think it's I know there's a bit of a, oh, poor you, you're so talented, but it's very difficult when you don't have when you're the one that has to make the decision for where the limitations are, for where the borderlines are, because I don't think so much about approaching genre as an absolute. But I do want to be respectful of the roots of things at the same time. I don't want to be appropriative when I'm like blending things together, I suppose. But it's these are things that happen to me naturally. I'm not going out of my way to be like, okay, well now we're going to have a funk bass line. Like I'm just thinking like, oh, this is the right attitude for this. So I'm thinking about where I could find that in the pantry of of everything. Like where and I think that something like Fiberglass is interesting because that's a song, like you said, it was ancient. I wrote that when I was a teenager. Um, and I'm in my 30s now. And sometimes a song just takes a really long time to find itself. And sometimes a person takes a really long time to find themselves. And there was I find myself like washing dishes a lot. And there's a clarity when you're hand washing dishes. It's very meditative. And a lot of my musical decisions and a lot of my big decisions seem to be made when I'm covered in palm olive. Which is very unfortunate. That's not a sponsorship, thankfully. Uh, I think that I must have been singing it in my head and it wouldn't leave me. And I was like, what is this? Oh, I wrote that. And I found the old lyrics scrawled on an old like notebook from high school, and I resonated with them far more. And I think it was a session of like automatic writing for me. Like I didn't even know how heavy the lyrics were at the time, and that's always kind of jarring. Uh, I I think that it makes sense that there's a snowy feel, maybe because I grew up in Minnesota largely, so if the snow came through, then that's kind of neat. And it's also the only yeah, it's also unusual because there's brevity to it, and I think the more disillusioned that I've become in the music industry, the more long-winded I've been at the the consistently failed attempt of trying not to be misconstrued. I found myself over explaining all the time, like here.
Right. Well, I think you do a great job of integrating all those influences into something really cohesive. And part of, I mean, a really big part of that is your voice. And sometimes you write really acrobatic melodies, which you can hear in, say, Neptune in the Snow on this record. And you're a trained singer, which often provokes some really interesting and polarized reactions from listeners. So
Mhm.
like, how have you dealt with that? And kind of, because I think your
Uh,
singing is the core of what you're doing in a way, and like you have an amazing voice, and people aren't used to hearing amazing voices. you know?
yeah, I guess. I mean, sometimes the voice comes out and you go, "Oh, that's me." I didn't really think of myself as a singer for a very long time. I think it was senior year of high school that I was like, "Oh man, I just want to be Kate Bush. This is great." And I it really like but I have loved voices for so long. And I think there's been this like through line of me wanting to think about music. I think about music environmentally. And I think a lot of that is because I grew up really fascinated with the end credit songs, like when of a film, and so then these credits that go too fast and they're too pixelated and the typeface are there, and then somehow you have like Jennifer Warnes singing something in the background about where we belong. Back to Buffy St. Marie again. I think for a long time I thought about listening to different soundtracks, especially a lot of Japanese animation soundtracks, where Western and European and Brazilian musicians were often integrated into things, and being fascinated with like sounds and textures. So by the time that I found myself thinking of myself as a singer rather than like I'm taking piano lessons, I listen to music voraciously. I think it was a long time of subliminal engagement, so that everything made sense to me, even if it was completely disparate. I was trying to look for connections of things rather than like here's some chord progression that in using music theory it makes sense. It's not that I'm completely I like a lot about music theory, but it's a skill and a tool to try to express the things that are internally. That should not be the dogma in and of itself. And I think this has led me to like a middle ground of not being easily defined. And so depending on where people know me from, there's perceptions about what kind of person I must be or what kind of musician I must be. But I listen to just as much disco as I do to bluegrass as I do to like alternative rock. Like everything has moods. I'm not always into eating the same thing every night for dinner. Maybe I want Thai food tomorrow. Maybe I want macaroni and cheese. Everything has a space. And so I think because I finally decided at a certain point to take my singing seriously, and I had experimented a lot on my own. I reached some limitations, and so I decided reluctantly to kind of go through school and see like, well, what if I lose myself? And then I'm thinking, well, the reason that you're pushing yourself is because you've reached a wall that you can't discover anymore by yourself. So, I sang a lot of things I had absolutely no interest in, and then years later I reflect on it and go, I'm really glad I did that because it unlocked parts of me that I didn't even know were there. And I mean, maybe I never need to sing Choo Choo Boogie ever again, but I did get an A. And I think when there was a while, because I was floating around these sort of avant rock circles for some time, that if someone discovered that I had a degree, that there was a presumption that I was a diva or I was like superior to everyone else. And I'm just thinking like, I like half my friend circle are punks. Like I like all music is valid. I really want to make that clear. And I somewhat resent myself for the training sometimes because I don't want to appear buttoned up. And so it's been a long journey of trying to be perfectly imperfect and trying to like add more grit back into myself. But also, accepting the nature of my voice in and of itself. Like I think sometimes it can be rather beautiful. And I think that there are times where my voice can have a lot of clarity, which is really appropriate for some material. So I'm interested in all sorts of a whole spectrum of things. And at a certain point, you have to kind of shut off what people think or have presumptions of for you. Because I think the hardest thing now is not interpersonally, because actually music in the last few years, I would say, is probably the most adventurous that it's been. In some ways, even though like a lot of contemporary pop music has been more, that's a whole subject in of itself. But more people are encouraged to have some uncanny qualities to themselves. So I'm not saying that I've like martyred myself this whole time by being like, but what about me? Where's my moment in the sun? I'm just saying that I'm really grateful that a lot of people have put in a lot of sacrifice to just kind of exist and do the thing that they're doing. So you kind of keep your head down. If it makes you happy, eventually it will find its way to someone. But the general challenge now has been like, in a journalistic sense, because it's when things are not easy to define. When you're promoting a record, you're not pop enough, or you're too pop, or you're not avant-garde enough. And then you get like a progressive rock magazine that goes, you are so proggy. Like, I'm everything and nothing to everyone. So I think I'm still learning some mental boundaries about how to process some information, but about what what perceptions there must be of me, because I think the biggest thing is that it's weird having to think about yourself in third person, when most of the time when I'm thinking about myself, I'm just thinking like, do I want to make coffee right now? Like that's what I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about like the gift that I have been very gratefully given and worked at.
Yeah, well, I mean, from working with you, I feel like you're completely intuitive in how you work. Like, yeah, you have the jazz background, you write really unusual chord progressions and chord voicings and stuff like that, but you're really working off of instincts, emotions, and moods. And one of the things that I think makes you kind of unique as a singer is that you're really primarily influenced by female vocalists, right?
Yeah.
And that's very unusual for a male singer, and you always like singing with female vocalists as well, and so every single record has had multiple guests backing vocalists. So can you talk about who the backing vocalists are on this record and what your relationship with them is?
Sure. I do want to talk on the point of like, there are male singers that I do really enjoy, but it isn't like some sort of agenda of like only needing to work with or only listening to female vocalists. But I think there's a particular energy in which a lot of female and female identifying musicians tend to have more of a serpentine quality or more expanse in the color palette that they have. And I do, and again, I'm being really reductive here for the sake of time, but a lot of male singers are often too safe for me. And I'm really interested in a lot of boundary pushing and a lot of like individual texture. And I find that, in my experience with a lot of listening, more women have that. Especially like in like world vocal, not a great term, again, out of convenience, but like Bulgarian styled singing and like Russian folk singing, like these are all things where you have a lot of breaks in the voice and or like different kinds of nasal twang in different parts of the Middle East. It's interesting to hear texture, and again, it's with women for me for the most part. But but I think also like a lot of male singers that I've been compared to, and a lot of male singers that I enjoy listening have also been influenced by women. Like I think David Bowie and like Jeff Buckley are all like in the roots of listening to the strength of women musicians. And the women on this record, again, the backing vocalists just happen to be that way. But I like the way that my timbre goes against female voices typically. And the musicians on this record are kind of pillars of my life. In that, like when I was younger and very naive, and this is like largely it was like dial-up internet, but it wasn't like internet now. This is internet 1.0 still. Like there would be an address on the back of a CD and like for fan letters right here, and I would handwrite letters or like send in a rudimentary email from like Hotmail or something and just be like, "Hi, my name is Sasha, and I'm really interested in music, and your voice is really cool. How do you approach it?" Da, 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 da. And so like these were women that entertained these really broad questions that I look back now and go like, I'm really glad they tolerated these questions, but two, what a lucky circumstance of time to allow me to do that and befriend these people genuinely over time. So to me, they're not even like backing singers; they're like support singers. Like they're there as genuine presence and texture and color. And when I'm writing a song, I think eventually about what is going against the lead. What, like, do I need something more acerbic sounding? Do I need something that has more warmth, more of an icy quality? And different singers have different colors. And that's what makes the voice so exciting for me, is that it's not necessarily limited to one timbre. Emily Bindiger has been a through line to much of my interest in music. She's a musician that's based out of New York. She, like in the progressive rock sense, she fell into this like album that she did when she was 16 in France that she's not thrilled about talking about typically. But she was backed up by Dynasty Crisis, which was like a French prog band, and she was doing like her singer-songwriter thing, and it kind of became this bizarre cult hit. But her resume is so sporadic, and yet that that pull into various directions, like whether it's like folk music with Leonard Cohen or it's like anime music with Yoko Kanno. Like there's this need to be kind of like a Swiss Army knife and be the best person you can be there. So I felt a bit of a camaraderie there. You know, I would talk to you at length a moment ago about feeling rather lost about clear definitions about how people may perceive me, but I love the fact that it's like there are people who are industry musicians who have created and often been like unsung heroes, which is a strange term for a singer, um, that are part of the architecture of what the music industry is and what kind of music that we have. And when you start looking at like people like the Wrecking Crew and all of these other backing musicians, the architecture is a through line. So Emily is one of these veteran singers in a sense, and I just think she's super cool. And when you've got a super cool voice and you're a really cool person, those two things together make for something that I absolutely want in my life, because she's hilarious and she's a good Scrabble partner, but she can sing anyone under the table, and her voice is super unique, but if she needs to, she can sound anonymous. So I find that empowering. Her lack of definition is her calling card, and I think that that's brilliant. Judy Vinar is another vocalist on the record, and she was my voice teacher. Her voice is a completely opposite texture to Emily's, and yet there's a similar frequency. In fact, at a certain point in the record, towards the end of a song called Telepathy, all of the vocalists come together. We really didn't have to do much other than change a couple of things, because everyone recorded in separate studios for their vocal parts. But frequency wise, we didn't have to do anything to do it. Like all four of the backing singers have completely different textures, and yet the frequency all merge itself. So that alarmed me in the best possible way by thinking like there must be something subconscious in my head where I'm hearing a frequency regardless of the texture of the voice. But Judy's super cool. She does stuff with Bobby McFerrin. She's been like playing guitar at a cafe recently. she's super rad. Anne-Marie Cullen, she's like a vocalist and a singer-songwriter. She was in kind of like a punk pop band for a while called Saucy Monkey. And she wrote music for this evergreen show that I constantly talk about from the 90s called So Weird, starring Mackenzie Phillips. And she was one of the people I was like, this is so interesting, because she had all these like synth pads. Like it's the soundtrack to that television show was ostensibly like folk rock music, but it had all these like weird, mysterious things happening in the background. It was the weirdness in So Weird that got me. So it's like you had these conventional song structures, but then suddenly it would take this bizarre, slightly stealthy left turn, and I was like, that is not lost on me. I am 12. That is not lost on me. And then finally, Mem Nahad, who is someone that I have admired for such a long time, and it was such a big deal for me during the making of this record, because I was like, oh man, I have to reach out to this person. Her music is so interesting. It's this like neo soul, but from like outer space, but like completely rootsy. And she's got the whole voice, like octaves upon octaves, and in a way where she knows what she's doing with them, and it's not like she's hitting a note for the sake of hitting it. And just one of the coolest people that I've been able to meet during this whole process. And I just think they're all cool. So in a way, I wanted to bring all of these forces that encourage me to make music together in a record that felt like a statement to me, and in a way to also pay it forward by being like, look, I hope you're proud of me. I'm growing up, you know? End of statement.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. Well, one of the choral moments that really stands out to me on this record is the end of Margaret, which I believe it's Anne-Marie Cullen on that song, right?
Yeah.
There's this big crunchy chord, and that's a really interesting song. To me, that's one of the standout tracks on this record. It's just this gorgeous meditation about death, which came at the intersection of a dream, a Twin Peaks reference, and real life experience. So who is Margaret?
I don't really feel fully comfortable naming who Margaret is, but because there is a Margaret, but I think that the song, because I was alluding to this earlier about like my songs aren't always strictly about one thing. I used it kind of as a vehicle because I've kind of experienced I have experienced a lot of death prematurely in my life. I've been to more funerals than I wish I should be able to admit that. It makes me uncomfortable because death in some ways is rather beautiful, but it's also really hard when this happens when you're very young. And so that was part of my brain that I had partitioned away. Every time it wasn't that I was afraid of the subject of death, it was just that I didn't think I had the range as a writer to actually approach it. But then somehow because I believe Margaret was the first song officially for this project, right? It just unlocked in me. And I think that unlocking there was a performance in the third season of Twin Peaks, for sure, of Catherine Coulson, who played Margaret, the log lady. And her performance on it was so moving to me that it kind of unlocked something in my brain I didn't know needed a key. And I was able to kind of pour out something because I knew a real Margaret as well. And in many ways, her performance felt very real to me. And there was one of my closest friends also passed away around this time, and that was really heavy for me. And so I'm really grateful for a synergy and a confluence of lots of different influences to come together to use the name as a meditation on many people in this life. And Anne-Marie sings the hell out of it. Her voice is her voice is cool to me in general, but she approached this in such a smoky way, which was very new to me. I was like, oh, I'm hearing a new thing in you, which is really rewarding and such a gift. Probably is maybe the most acrobatic song to sing on the record. It's hard to sing. It's hard to sing that song. I don't know. Anything else you want to know about that song?
Let's give it a listen.
All right, sounds good.
This is Margaret.
Margaret, I don't know what it is you speak to me, but I know in kind warmth is worth a listening. And I don't know where my head has been lately, so I take your words with open heart. Sure, it's been a while since we two could coincide, but we ride the tide in frequent phasing moons aside, picking up where we once left off. It's crazy. You sadly say if only we could just embrace each other. Not only you and I, but doesn't need to run for cover. All the world should simply learn to be kind and leave the darkness far behind. When we decide to make the most of little time. We saw through all the hokum, fire and the ride, and passive in your cryptic way of passions from another time. Learn to be kind,
Fun little ditty.
The gorgeous song.
Thank you. There was a lot of pushback from certain circles during the earlier stages of the record from some people, and then eventually I ended up in another circle of people where they said, "This is the best song on the record," and I went, "I like you." So, um, it's yeah, I think it's kind of the heart of the record, honestly, to me. It's the hard it was the hardest song to find its way there, but it's definitely there, and I can remember all the weird little influences. Like there's this like crunchy orchestra hit, like super cheesy orchestra hit that I was like, Todd, we got to put this in there. And it's like, but it's like everything is cool when you balance it with the right velocity. And I think I kind of like paraphrased a similar idea from an Hikaru Utada song called Colors, where she's like, "Oh no, the leaves" in the music video. Anyway, I'm just talking to myself. Kind of weird on Make Weird Music.
All right, so one of the things you really wanted to do with this record was make a vinyl album, right? And you kept the album really short and tight to make that happen. So where can we buy this thing?
On the internet. On sachamullin.bandcamp.com, which my name is often misspelled. It's Sacha in the French way, and then it's Mullin, Mullin, singular, .bandcamp.com. And you know, you can also purchase it at local stores in Chicago, and you can also purchase it in several stores in London, in the United Kingdom. And yeah, I'm very proud. I'm very proud to have my work feel like it's physically tangible. I've envisioned my other two albums also maybe at some point in that way, because I think all of my efforts solo wise have always felt like there was a split in the middle, and then you flip the record, but it just hasn't been in the cards to do that until now. So this record was so important to me, I had to make it happen. So I'm grateful. And I think Todd's mastering job sounds fantastic, and yeah, I think it's really great. Go buy it.
Well, thank you. We've put the link that he just described in the chat and in the video description. So please click that. Go buy the record. Thank you so much, Sacha, for being with us here today and doing this interview. And thanks again to Anthony for letting me do this. And yeah, thanks everyone for coming. And hope everyone has a great night.
Yeah, and should you want more Sacha and Gabriel, the B-side to Arranging Flowers is a cover of an Alex Johnson song that no one's heard. So,
Yes, indeed. There's a special single for that, right?
yeah, it's over there. It's washed out with too much lighting. I'm really grateful for this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, bye.
And stream ended.